Hi everyone! Today I want to talk to you about a perspective that I have around the Enneagram of personality and how we can use this system and the wisdom that comes from it in order to improve the quality of our lives and to understand our emotions better. So I'm going to be talking about three main concepts that are all related to the intelligence centers: the thinking triad, the feeling triad, and the gut triad. So all about that in the next few minutes. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So I've mentioned this in some of my previous videos, but we know that for each of the three intelligence centers, there is one emotion that seems to have some sort of a special quality. An emotion that the types from that group are trying to suppress or are struggling more to deal with. And what I'm trying to say, or what I will try to argue for in this video, is that we can draw wisdom from all three intelligence centers, regardless of what type we are. Sure, the wisdom that is associated with our group will probably be more important and will be able to be applied more often in our lives. However, we are not isolated types. We have influences from other groups, from other types, and as human beings, we all feel all the feelings. So let's start with intelligence center number 1 for types 2, 3, and 4, which is the heart intelligence center. And here, the core emotion that these types are trying to suppress or avoid is shame or embarrassment. And if we think about it, when we perceive that there are threats to our identity, and here I'm not just talking about types 2, 3, and 4, but for everybody. When we perceive that there will be threats to our identity, to who we are as people, we feel shame. And shame is such a powerfully negative feeling that most of us will not want to experience it. Sure, it might feel a little bit stronger for types 2, 3, and 4, but this is pretty universal. People do not like to feel shame. So because we feel shame, we then start engaging in avoidance behaviors. We want to avoid the thing that causes us to feel shame. Because we avoid things, we start feeling more and more fear around that particular concept or person or situation that is making us feel that way. And because we have this feeling of fear, we become less authentic. We start portraying ourselves in a certain way or projecting a certain identity to the world that is quite far from who we really are or how we really feel about something. And what happens then? Well, when we show up in a way that is not authentic for a longer period of time, even if people like us or love us or appreciate us, they don't appreciate us for who we are because they don't know who we are. They keep seeing this projected image. And when that happens, again, there's a threat to the identity because we feel like we are not unappreciated for who we are. Therefore, there's a perceived threat to who we are, to our identity. So the circle restarts, and again we feel shame, and again the shame motivates us to avoid things, and then we feel fear, and so on and so forth. So how can we incorporate the lesson from the Enneagram into our lives? By inviting authenticity in and sitting with the discomfort that shame creates. Maybe asking ourselves a few questions around, why am I feeling shame? What is it about myself that I cannot accept? What is it about my identity that I don't like? And of course, this is not, a quick fix, something that happens overnight, but it might be worth, spending some time reflecting on this. Now, moving on to the second intelligence center, the thinking triad, which is specifically for types 5, 6, and 7. And here we have the emotion anxiety or fear. So what is specific to this group is that they are trying to suppress anxiety or fear by creating security for themselves. And again, if we are to extrapolate the lessons from this Enneagram concept, we can now realize that when there's a threat to a perceived level of safety in this time, not identity, we start feeling fear because we don't feel safe anymore. Something is happening. It's rocking the boat. So we start feeling fear. And because we feel fear, we start overthinking. Fear is very often associated with, mulling things over, with overthinking and not taking action, being stuck in our heads, and sometimes in our emotions as well. Because we overthink, we start worrying even more, because every time you overthink, you see more and more catastrophic scenarios, you see more and more problems and things that could go wrong. So this can exacerbate the feeling of fear more into anxiety, into excessive worrying. And what happens when you're worrying? Well, you're not present anymore. You're struggling with being in the moment, with really connecting with what is happening around you, because you're thinking about the future, anticipating possible things that might go wrong, and this disconnects you from what is actually happening in the moment. And because you're not present, you then feel like you can't really take care of yourself, you can't really support yourself, which is a pretty common theme for types in the thinking group. You feel like you can't really be there and deal with the problems that are happening in your life by yourself, which creates this idea that, well, if I'm unable to take care of myself or to support myself, then I'm not safe. So again, there's a perceived threat to your safety. And the cycle restarts. Because you feel like your safety is not there anymore, you will start feeling fear, then the fear will make you overthink, the overthinking will cause worrying, and so on and so forth. So maybe a little bit of wisdom that we can get from this Enneagram concept is that in order to deal with our fear and in order to not feel like, our safety will always be something that is problematic, we can invest more energy into learning how to be present, how to engage with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our experiences in the moment in order to see what is really happening rather than always worrying and catastrophizing about the future, because this is associated with a lot of mental health struggles. And now I'm going to move on to number 3, the gut triad or the instinctive triad, which normally characterizes types 8, 9, and 1. And what is common here in terms of emotions is the willingness to suppress anger or rage. But like I did for the previous groups, I'm not only going to talk about these things from the perspective of types 8, 9, and 1, but actually what is the wisdom that we can all benefit from this group or from this Enneagram concept. So again, when there is a perceived threat to our independence or autonomy, we start feeling anger. Anger is often an indicator that we feel like someone overstepped our boundaries and we're not independent anymore. Because we feel anger, we start resisting any kind of control, especially external control. Because we start resisting external control, we want to exert control ourselves and we become more controlling in the way that we are. And because we exert more control, we then start feeling more pressure, or we create more pressure in ourselves and also around us and in our relationships. And because we create pressure, we then feel like there's a control imbalance, like, it's either that we are too controlling or other people are too controlling, and there's not harmony in that sense. So again, because we feel like there's a control imbalance, we start feeling a perceived threat to our sense of autonomy or independence again. And because of that, the cycle restarts. So again, how do we break the cycle and what can we learn from this particular Enneagram concept is that sometimes letting go, learning to not try to control everything that is happening because we can't, can really liberate us from this intense feeling of anger or rage that can then control us. And again, another type of control imbalance happens. So this is just an idea. It doesn't have to be applied exactly in this way in every single situation. But I found myself reflecting a lot about how much wisdom there is in the Enneagram of personality beyond, finding your type and relating to other people's type, but actually lessons about what we feel and the way we relate to the world that I think are pretty much universally valid and that everyone can learn from and benefit from. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for being with me, and thank you very much for watching this video. For those of you who are interested, I will link it below. I have the possibility of you signing up for my newsletter where I send articles about every 2 weeks around typology and personal development. And I also offer self-awareness coaching sessions for those of you who are interested in enhancing your level of self-awareness and increasing the level of well-being in your life. So again, thank you very much for being with me, and see you next time with another video on typology.